Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the LFC transfer room for another 7:30. I nearly said 6 then. It feels like 6, but 7:30 p.m. stream. We've got plenty to discuss today because the dust has settled, emotions have come back down, and we are able to sort of digest everything that's gone on with regards to the Liverpool 1-0 loss against Nottingham Forest, which I had the joy of being on BBC Radio discussing, and it was awful because I had to talk about it and stay somewhat positive. But we move on. I'm joined today by Neil, Hassan, and Anil. There's nothing I enjoy more than being on these streams, and it's being able to speak to people who are such big fans is such a privilege. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't done it already, please make sure to click like and subscribe. And if you're watching on Twitter, head over to YouTube so you can get involved with the comments. We're also going to do the usual, the sort of Q&A thing. If you've got any questions you want to ask, go for it. I'm sure these guys will be more than happy to get involved. Anyone who's tuning in as well, as I say, you need to head over to YouTube to get involved with the comments. Any that are particularly questions, anything that we want to discuss, I'll make sure to favourite and we will get to them towards the end or as we're going. One comment, it was evident that we lack depth for these games, something we're going to touch on. But we're going to start off with you, Neil. How you feeling, how you doing after yesterday? Because, you're a massive fan, as we all are. But, I mean, what's your sort of, was your weekend ruined, or was it sort of we've lost, just move on past it?
It always ruins the weekend when we have a bad result. I think sometimes when you lose and you've performed okay, it's a bit more acceptable. But yesterday it was a poor performance. I think no one can argue that it wasn't. So yeah, but I do think we'd had a really good start, 3 really good performances, and got 9 points. And I think we probably all went into the game expecting more of the same. And Forest were a resilient team, and they got their tactics right and played the perfect away game against a team that were not at their best. So yeah, it's always disappointing. But I think we're going to have some bumps along the road. We've made a change, first time in 9 years. There's going to be, as I say, bumps along the road. So I think we've just got to accept it and move on and try and get it right for the next game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was the result that a lot of people were sort of looking at and thinking, well, I think the first 3 games gave us a sort of, in my personal opinion, a false confidence whereby, it's looked absolutely fantastic. This was a result which, if you'd have said to me before the season started, look, you're going to lose to Forest 1-0, it's going to be grim. I wouldn't have been too shocked because, like you've just said there, 9 years we've been stuck with the same, not stuck at all, but you know what I mean? We've been at the same hierarchy for 9 years, Klopp in charge. There's been a major change, major shift in everything going on. This was a defeat which, yeah, it sucks, but it's a transition at the minute, and it is a transition. So this isn't something which is great, but it's not something which has absolutely surprised me. And like you said there, we've gone through 9 years of Klopp. We're now here. It's not a terrific result, but it's a result which I don't think would shock a huge amount of people. If you said at the beginning of the season, Nottingham Forest are going to get a 1-0 win, you'd be disappointed, but you wouldn't be absolutely shocked. Diego says, can't really blame Slot for this. Another comment saying, hardly destroyed by Forest. And we weren't. I mean, Hassan, that is would you say, because we were disappointing and Forest didn't exactly dominate the game, let's be honest, but they went to that match with a clear game plan. It was very much sit back, soak up pressure. As soon as Liverpool get frustrated and start committing men forward, we then bring on our pacey players, your Hudson-Odois, your Elangas, your Awanis, those quick people who can get in behind and cause them problems. Like, was this so much we were poor, or was this we played right into Forest's hands in terms of their game plan?
Yeah, I think as Neil said, that they played the perfect away game, and we were not up for it. I think maybe this was the game where Slot needed a bit of changing after international break. He must have given chance to the players who have not played now and are wanting their chance.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, Hassan, you might have dropped a bit there. So we're gonna. Oh no, there you go. You're back. You're back on. You're back on. I
Yeah.
thought you'd completely tipped out then. I mean, you said there about people getting the chance, but does Endo need to get a chance? Now, I personally think that wasn't the match for Endo. I
Yeah.
think Endo is a bit better when you're against a team who you're up against it, like maybe against like a City where you're going to probably concede a lot more chances, but against the Forest side, who we were expected to have the bulk of possession, and of course we did, Hassan. I mean, it was the right team to start with, surely, wasn't it? Or was there any major changes you would have made in that starting 11?
I think a bit of mix in the front three. Maybe McAllister should have not started. Szoboszlai had a really bad game. Maybe uh, Curtis should have started, although he didn't play really well when he came on. But maybe if he had started, and the substitutions were really, I think, if we were up, the game was lacking, and certain changes, I think, didn't help us a lot. Because
Mm,
players didn't gel in three substitutions and two after that. So maybe the players were not. Uh, I think if we bring on substitution, maybe one player. Maybe I think if Endo came in and we have pushed McAllister, not changing trend from right back to the center, I think that would have been better if Endo was there to stop. Like they scored in the counter, and I think a player like that would have helped. I think this game also showed that we needed someone in the midfield who's a destroyer, a bit of a nasty player, because their captain, what's its name, Vokes? No, I don't know. He was playing. Was
mm,
committing fouls all over the pitch, and we didn't have someone who uh, told him that no, you cannot do this, because he committed so many fouls. I think McAllister was on the floor for 3 or 4 times. I think this game showed that we needed someone who was a bit a player who can show the opposition that you cannot do this here.
mm. Okay, so you would have been more in favour for that sort of break up play midfielder in that kind of regard, someone who's just a bit more of a more physical presence. So, I mean, Anil, I mean, in that regard, I think that's absolutely fair enough. And there's a comment saying Ryan was great. The Trent tryout wasn't what we needed to do, and I agree. I think personally that we lost the match after the substitutes. There seemed to be a real lack of control in midfield when McAllister went off. Like it felt like there was points where we were operating in a 4-3-3. Forest was sort of like a 4-5-1, and every time we got the ball in midfield, there was 5 players on their team compared to our 2 or 3 who were in midfield. And when McAllister went off, that felt evident in midfield because Gravenberch and Szoboszlai were. It felt like they were on their own at points, and where was it for you where you felt like this match was lost? I mean, it's obvious to say the goal, like that feels like the moment where the match went wrong. But was there a particular substitute or a particular moment where you thought, no, this has gone completely wrong?
I wasn't really sure about the substitutions because I thought Louis Diaz was looking okay. And then Salah was
Mm-hmm.
the best game where he played on for the whole 90, which might be down to because Elliot not being available and Chaser not being in the squad. But then there's certain substitutions I didn't really understand. Like so far this season, he keeps on putting on Simicast and Bradley, keep taking out Trent and Robertson. But I think when it feels like it's more planned for those substitutions rather than adapting the game and bringing subs on to help us like win the game. Yeah, I think putting Trent in midfield didn't really help. I feel like it kind of dampened his influence on the game. And then Bradley, I love Bradley. I think he's been good for us, but unfortunately Hudson-Odoi got the better of him. Maybe Joe Gomez might have been a better option if he moved to Trent into midfield. Yeah, I just think the whole game in general, we weren't good enough, simple as that. If I going forward, I would think about maybe taking Jota out because I think he didn't look good at all. But then Nunez did the other option, and Nunez had exactly been good coming off the bench. But I think we just need to do something different. So I would probably give Nunez a chance against AC Milan. And I like the idea of Endo coming in, but I'm not sure this was the game for him, like you were saying, and Lou. But I think if Szoboszlai does continue to not really have an impact, I would think about maybe having Endo and Gavin Birch with McAllister at the midfield three.
As in McAllister as the number 10, so to speak, or?
Yeah, having McAllister further forward. Yeah, that would make him more, having more influence going forward.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that. I think from what we've all seen, Slot doesn't like change in terms of he wants a set start on midfield team, which is absolutely fine. Don't fix what isn't broken. You've just won 3 games, including the 3-0 win against Man United. You've not conceded the goal. What's the point in changing up too much? And I can understand that maybe he wanted to keep that same thing, but at the same time, like you said there, maybe we did need to change. Maybe Jota, he scored against Ipswich, but then beyond then, he's not really done too much. Maybe it is time to start bringing in Nunez. Maybe you do have to bring in Endo, but I think in that match in particular, it just felt like we needed to try and break them down, and having that midfield free with the creativity they've shown over the past few games, I can understand why he kept it the same. So there's a lot of people saying, oh, he's arrogant, he's stubborn. But again, don't fix what isn't broken. And going into that match, if you just said to anyone, look, we're going to keep the same starting 11 going into the Nottingham Forest game after those first 3 results, I don't think anyone would have been like, oh, why? I think everyone seemed to be relaxed with that team. Paul says, I'm still getting over yesterday's result. It was woeful and desperate. Games like this will make the lack of depth more evident. Signing only Chiesa this window will be the season's mistaken. I suppose that's a fair thing, or it's a thing that people are going to keep going back to. And Neil, I mean, yeah, we do need to rotate, but my argument to it, and you let me know if I'm right or wrong, you give me your thoughts on it, but my thought process is this is the first of a long run of games. So use your best squad for this first match back to try and get the momentum going, and then for the second and third and fourth and fifth, then you sort of rotate. But for that first game back, you might as well stick with the same squad. Or would you have gone into this match maybe trying a different thing? Like, I suppose what I'm trying to ask is, do you understand why he kept the same starting 11, or do you think he should have rotated going into this match and then maybe had the strongest 11 for Milan? Or
I don't have a problem with him sticking with a winning team that dominated at Old Trafford. I think with the likes of Endo had played international football, and had a long journey. So the only one I possibly would have considered was Nunez. Not because I think Jota's been okay. I thought he was good against Ipswich. I thought he made the goal brilliantly for Lucho against Brentford. But Darwin didn't travel, and he's had plenty of time training during that period. And I may have just thrown him in just to give him an opportunity to see what he can do, and have Jota as the bench option. So I have no issue with him going with the same team. And the performance may have been very different had we have showed more composure and a better mentality in the final third. I mean, I've never seen us. Well, it's been rare that we've been so poor in the final third. I mean, how many times did Salah get the ball on the right, cut inside, and just give the ball away when he was just trying to lay a
straight at the keeper?
Yeah. So I have no problem with him not changing it. He's going to need to change it now. and I do think he needs to change it for Milan and freshen it up, probably with 3 changes, maybe 4 changes. He's got the players there. I think last season, one of the big things that Jurgen Klopp got right was he trusted his squad. And I think now we need to come into that phase of the season. We've got 7 games in 21 days where we do trust other members of the squad, and they need to be given game time. So the international break actually helped. Jarell Quansah, Endo, Cody Gakpo all got football. So it's not like they're coming in completely rusty. Curtis maybe a little bit, and Joe Gomez is, because he hasn't had any football whatsoever. So I would probably save those 2 for the Carabao Cup and get them 90 minutes under their belt. But I think the others can start now to rotate into the team and get the trust, not just in that starting 11, but across the squad. And as I say, yesterday was more about poor decision making and a lack of composure for me, which is where we went wrong and what we hadn't done. We'd played very precisely in the first 3 games. You could see the clear game plan, and I think yesterday you could see it to a certain extent. And up until the final third, we were probably okay. And then once the game goes and they started to come into it a little bit more, they didn't have chance after chance after chance. It's hard to stem that flow. The subs, it was difficult for them. They didn't really have much of an impact on the game. We lost Trent for 10 minutes, 15 minutes after he moved into midfield. So yeah, I wouldn't go overboard as a result of yesterday, but I do think the time is now to start rotating those players in and freshening things up a little bit.
It's a perfect time as well because Curtis Jones is back, and I want to keep it with you, Neil, on that really quick, because yesterday we saw, substitute-wise, Konate went off for Curtis Jones, and Curtis Jones sort of operated in a deeper role. He didn't go forward too much. He sort of operated in that Gravenberch role. So going forward, obviously we know Slot isn't a huge Endo fan. He's not said it himself, but obviously there was the whole talks of him leaving. There were bids, and he'd sort of pushed him out the starting 11. So is Curtis Jones the sort of natural backup to Gravenberch in that sense? Like, do you think he views Jones as the number 6 behind Gravenberch, who can play in that deep playmaker role and run forward with the ball?
I think he probably does. It's probably not what I would do, because Endo was one of our best players for 4 or 5 months last season. So I have no problem with Endo being in that backup position and coming in and playing when we need him. But I think his concern is about on the ball and having that 360 vision around him as to what's going on, and he may see Jones as a bit more secure in possession. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Jones play in there alongside McAllister or alongside Gravenberch, with McAllister pushed a bit further forward. But yeah, it's not what I think, but I would not be surprised if he does see Jones as sort of the next one in after Gravenberch in that deeper role.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to be the sort of what he's hinting at so far. And Jones is someone who I think is good at picking up the ball and running with it. But like said here, Jones can lose the ball in dangerous areas. He absolutely can. And that is something that he has been critiqued for at points. Now, there's an interesting point just before we go on to Hassan, saying the goal did not come from a DM mistake. It didn't. It actually came from the right back position because Conor Bradley was so tucked inside. And I'm going to try something fancy, which I didn't know you could do, but apparently Steve does it all the time. So I'm just going to share my screen for a second. So this, what I'm about to show you now, is the Liverpool Nottingham Forest match. This was the average positions, as you can see on screen. Very attack-minded from what you can see. A lot of the players tended to operate in midfield. The only 2 further back were Konate and Van Dijk, and we obviously got caught out on the right-hand side where Conor Bradley was meant to be. You then look at the Manchester United game and look how far back the defence actually is. No one's committing too far forward. There's not too much space in behind. Players are actually able to track back and defend when they need to. But in the Nottingham Forest match, it just felt like everyone was just too far forward, too far committed. And I understand that they were doing that because, you know, they were trying to create opportunities, they were trying to create chances. But do you think, Hassan, that maybe there's a sense of this was a learning curve for Slot, that he got caught out by his first, not his first, because I'm sure in the Eredivisie he faced low blocks before, but do you think this was his first real test of proper, like, for lack of a better phrase, English team sitting back, soaking up pressure, hitting you on the counter? Like, do you think this was just as much of a learning curve for him about this team as it was for us watching it as fans?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at home they came with the game plan, and they executed it really, really well. And the first game was against Ipswich. Maybe in after some time they will restore to that, but it was the first game in front of their home fans. Maybe they played they were better in the first half, and in the second half they gave us chances. In this game they didn't go forward. They just they bring on Alanga and Hudson Odoi after when our we were getting a bit tired. They knew they can run and be clinical. So I think there was a game plan, and that's why they were really happy in the end. Also, that their game plan worked out really well. But for us, I think it's really it's a lesson for him that not always everything goes according to your own plan, and you need to have plan A, plan B, and plan C. And maybe you have to be a bit patient with your changes, because new players coming in after in a game which is already set up is really difficult for them to go in. There should be a subtle changes, not complete formation changes so abruptly.
Well, you've actually just moved me on perfectly to the next point, because I know, like, yesterday went into a very, I was confused. Like, I was so confused as to what we were doing, where I saw the substitutes and I thought, okay, I can kind of see what's going on. But then we end up in a back three, which actually costs us the match, where it's Conor Bradley, Kostas Tsimikas, and Virgil van Dijk. And just to sort of do the whole screen share thing again, because I'm actually finding it really entertaining. I won't lie to you. You can see Trent is here in midfield. He's so far tucked in wide. He's basically operating as a right midfielder. And then you look at the Nottingham Forest team and you see these two here, the number 8 and the number 19 on the left-hand side, Alex Moreno and Elliot Anderson. And that back three was such a strange thing to see. Now, do you think, Anil, that that's something that they've worked on? Because we said under Klopp numerous times, God, I wish sometimes he'd do this, or sometimes he wouldn't just stick to the same thing over and over again, just energy and intensity. I wish he'd just sort of try this and try that. Slot has shown that he's not afraid to change formation. He's not afraid to change up the way we play. Do you think that back three is something they've worked on as a sort of last resort, or do you think that was very much panic, get all the forward-thinking players on, 2 full-backs instead of any, and 1 centre-back, like, yeah, just go for it kind of situation?
I think must be something that we must have worked on, because Arne Slot seems like somebody who very like plans a lot, and he thinks a lot in advance in terms of tactics and things like that. So I reckon it must have been something that Arne Slot has been working on with the players beforehand. That if we get into a part of the game where we might be losing, and just to try and go for the win, we can switch personnel and try and utilize other players. But I feel like we didn't really see a positive effect of that. And with the way Nottingham Forest play, and we could have got those pacey wingers in Hudson-Odoi and Elanga, it probably made it easier for Forest to kind of counter us. So I'm not sure it was the right move, but I think in other games it could work. And yeah, and I think from what I think Arne Slot would have definitely planned out, because from whatever I've seen from Arne Slot, it seems like he's always trying to plan things in advance, and I think I heard things about him like trying to set up like game plans. Like, I heard that he's staying behind and trying to think ahead in the game. So I think it must have been planned.
I mean, what did you think about Trent going into midfield? Like, because we saw England this summer. He was just put in midfield. That was it. You are midfielder. Whereas, and then when the changes got made, it was essentially the same thing. He wasn't a fullback going into midfield inverted. He was full on stuck in the midfield. And the same thing happened again. Like, why? What did you make of the change, and why do you think he did it? Because, yes, I understand Jones came on, but was there no better alternative you could have used? Could you have maybe kept McAllister on? I understand he was getting thrown around, but what did you make of Trent going into that midfield role?
I think he wanted a bigger impact in the game, and he thought Trent was the best option. I can understand why. We're desperate for a goal, and we all know Trent's ability on the ball. So I think it's more a case of get Trent far as forward as we can, just so he can try and influence the game. But I think the way the game was, it would have been better just to keep him right back. And like I was saying before, I'm not completely sure about this whole, like, so far this season, between Trent and Robertson keep coming off at certain times of the game. And I think in this game, it would have been better to keep Trent on and take Robertson off for Tsimikas. So I don't think it worked, personally.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I'd have to agree with you in that regard. I don't think it's. We saw, or I saw in the overlap this week where they were talking about Trent, and they were saying, he's phenomenal, he's world class, but he's best when he's got time on the ball. And I think in that midfield yesterday, the way Forest were closing down, the second one of us got the ball, there was someone on them. It felt panicked at points when he was trying to pass, and he was actually messing passes up. He sliced the ball once or twice. There was one where he tried to cross it or something, and it went out for a throw in. Like, I mean, yeah, Paul says our worst performance in years at home. We started so rushed and desperate. As time went by, we lost everything mentally and physically. And yeah, I think, Neil, was that a proper... We've seen Anfield over the years where it's other teams get phased, bar the odd result, like Leeds. I can't remember if that last season or the season before, the Leeds, the 1-0 result. But it's so rare that teams come to Anfield and actually manage to get the advantage mentally. So with that in mind, I mean, what do you think it was that made that match feel the way it did? I know it's a bit of a broad question, but is it because we hate playing these low block teams and we know what happens with these low block teams? Do you think it was just nervous from the offset, or do you think it was just as time went on, we just felt more panic? Because we didn't start the game particularly quick either, to be honest.
No, I don't think we were as strong in the first half as we had been against Man United and Brentford to a certain extent. Ipswich was a bit iffy as well in the first half. Very good in the second half. So we did seem a bit jaded, I would say. I think both fullbacks' legs looked like they were both tired, if I'm honest. And we weren't as sharp as we'd been in previous games. I think if Lucho scores when it hits the post, then you're probably looking at a different game. But I think it was two things. One was decision making and execution of passing in the final third was dreadful, and we weren't carving out clear cut chances. No one's a bigger fan of Mo Salah than I am, but that's one of the worst games I've seen him have for us. So I think that decision making and poor execution was exacerbated as the game went on at 0-0, and then we were 1-0 down, we did seem to almost panic. So for me, as I say, general control of the game, we were pretty much in control. We'd have possession. But someone said it earlier, they deserved a lot of credit for the way they did it. But I think with a stronger mentality, which is I'm surprised to say that about us, because we've always, had a reasonably good mentality over the past few years. But that poor execution in and around the final third, sometimes that can be because players are jaded. I wouldn't have had a problem if he'd have taken Salah off yesterday. And I didn't see the necessity to move Trent. Even if he'd have put Conor Bradley right wing instead of Salah, I'd have understood it, because Salah was having a stinker, and Bradley's someone that can drive at a player and get the ball into the box. So, yeah, for me, I'd put it mostly on the players in terms of their decision making and poor execution. I don't think the changes really helped either.
No.
So I think there's a combination of reasons why it went the way it was.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was just one particular thing. It was just poor substitutes, a lack of impetus up front, no control in midfield, especially after McAllister went off. And one player in particular, Neil, who, by the way, you're speaking truth, apparently, according to Jay Muse, which you absolutely are, is Dominic Szoboszlai. Now, he to be honest, hasn't looked great, I'd say, over the first 3 games. I think out of the 3 of McAllister, Gravenberch and Szoboszlai probably has been the poorest. I don't think he's particularly set the world alight. Like, even the United game, he was good, don't get me wrong, he wasn't bad, but compared to the other 2, he certainly does seem off the pace. And I think that match yesterday in particular really showed off that side of him. Again, just to sort of do the fancy screen share thing, because I'm a little dork now who apparently realised that you can share his screen, and I'm probably going to do this a lot more every stream. But you look at Szoboszlai's actual statistics for the match, if you can see that in the bottom right. He made 46 of 59 accurate passes, which is 78%. 3 key passes. Only 1 of his crosses reached someone. Only 3 of his long balls of 6 actually reached someone. He committed 3 fouls. He lost possession 18 times. Now, he really did look off it yesterday. And Hassan, I mean, Szoboszlai has felt like he had that purple patch at the start of last season, the 3-4 months, the Leicester game where he scored that absolute screamer. He carried that on to the league for a bit, but since he's dipped, he's not gone back up to that level. And it feels like there's this sort of, what's his best position? Is he meant to go out wide? Is he forward? Is he meant to be a box-to-box? What do you make of Szoboszlai, and where does he actually fit into this team? Because I'm not quite sure I have the answer, to be honest.
I think he played the first 3 games really well because his energy is needed for the kind of press slot demands. I think that was the only reason he's ahead of Harvey. Maybe Harvey is more technically gifted than him, but the running power, the energy he brings is not he is better in this. And I think Neil hit the nail on the head there, about the substitution. I think with Szoboszlai and Salah, nothing was going or right for them. I think if they were changed, it would have made more sense. And I think everything was tried out from the right hand side. Trent was going to the right, Bradley, Salah, sometimes Szoboszlai, everyone was there. And when Gapco, he was trying to come inside, first Robo and then Simikas were going ahead of him, and nobody from left, there was nothing in that game. And we really needed some a left footer, or I think I don't know why we all heard that Chiesa was match fit and all that. It would have been a perfect game, in my opinion, for him to come in the home game. We needed a win. Maybe he would have produced something. I think we so much went on the right hand side, and Moreno was having his best game of his life. I don't know, and I think he played really well, and we were not playing good. I think the balance of the team went all away because we were uh, uh, so much focused on the right hand side, because the
Mm.
players who came on also are right sided. Everything was going from right and nothing from the left. I think this was, something which I noticed.
I completely agree. It did feel like it was very right-hand central when Diaz came off, and that Gakpo wasn't making anything particularly happen. I think Gakpo is better when he's able to run inside, but when teams are operating that low block and no one's able to get past them, it does feel like that left-hand side becomes a bit of a wasted piece of potential. We can't seem to make anything happen. There's a couple of comments just to go through. Where is Szoboszlai's shooting gone now? Anil, I suppose this one could sort of go to you because, like Hassan's touched on there, all the different ways of which we probably should have broke this game down. Now, Slaughter said earlier on that he doesn't want his teams to just shoot for the sake of it. Do it if you see a chance, but let's not waste opportunities. Let's not lose the ball unnecessarily. Now, for a player like Gravenberch, who's picking it up from deep and able to make things happen, and he's got time with the ball, that's outstanding. But for a player like Szoboszlai, who we saw last season numerous times, he was so willing to shoot whenever he got the opportunity. He's not been doing that this season. And in my mind, it's very early on to be saying it. It's very early on to be suggesting it. But is there a chance that maybe Slot's management, which seems to be a bit more reserved, doesn't necessarily gel with someone like Szoboszlai, who seems to be very much, I want to shoot when I get the ball. I want to make things happen when I get the ball. Like, is there a world of which that's a possibility?
I hope so, because I think when you play these low block teams, you need to be more unpredictable. So Szoboszlai shooting, that's like another weapon that we have in our arsenal. So I think we need to allow Szoboszlai to be more himself in terms of like taking shots and things like that, because that will be another way that we can win games. And the more unpredictable we are, the better. And that was something that we can sometimes say we had that under Klopp, because we had the way we play was a bit like very fast and direct. And so I think going forward we might have to maybe Slot might have to tweak a few things just to get more out of certain players. And yeah, I think the main reason yesterday for the loss, I'd probably say down to the tackles, because their decision making, it wasn't really clinical, and we hardly created many chances. And I think Harvey Elliott would have been someone who would have been good yesterday, because he can like kind of thread balls in between defenders, and I think he would have been a good option, but unfortunately he wasn't available. And same with Chiesa. I think he might have come on as well if he was on the bench, because that's what he bought him for. So when Salah's not at his best, he can come on. And that's also another problem as well. I think that we can't be too reliant on Salah. So if Salah's not having a good game, and we need other players to step up. And I think that's one of the biggest problems.
No, I completely agree with that sentiment. I do think it is. We have a world-class squad in certain positions. We need them to step up in those moments, and I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And I'll keep this with you, Anil, because I think this is a really good question, actually. Does Anfield miss not having Klopp's emotion in the stadium? Now, Anfield sounded, from where I was hearing it, very loud at the beginning with the "You Never Walk Alone," etc., etc. But it did feel like the atmosphere became very subdued. So, do you think that is something that the stadium is missing, having Klopp's emotion? Because one thing that always stuck out to me is when we went from Brendan Rodgers, who was very subdued as a manager, the most you'd get was the whole that thing when we scored, to Klopp, who's suddenly, he's cheering everyone up. He's trying to get the crowd going. We saw it against Villarreal, Sunderland, Arsenal. It was such a big change to go back to a manager who wants to sort of keep the emotions in check? Do you think that the actual atmosphere in the stadium is missing that charismatic person?
I think that could be part of it, yeah. Because even myself in the first game of the season, after we beat Ipswich, I miss Klopp coming up to crowd and doing the whole, like I love Klopp, but I think we all love Klopp, so it's hard for all of us as fans to not have Klopp there anymore. And as much as I don't want Slot to be like that either. He needs to be himself, and that's completely fine. But yeah, it's hard going from someone who's such a legend and someone that we all love. So that's obviously always going to have a little impact on the crowd, unfortunately. But all we can do now is just try to get behind the manager, and the noise will come louder and things will get bigger but better when the team keeps winning. So yeah, I think it definitely has played a part, because Klopp's fucking legend, really.
And Neil, I mean, the same question to you, because as Jay Muse says as well, he attends regularly. I mean, is there a sort of difference amongst the fan base in that stadium with regards to, like, it's been a while since I've gone. I can't get tickets for the life of me. If anyone wants to help, brilliant. But like, is there a different feel in that stadium now of not the emotions gone, because obviously Liverpool fans have been that way for years, but does it feel different not having Klopp there to sort of G everyone up and visibly project that emotion onto the fans?
I think it's too early to say, because I think we're talking about 2 home games at the moment. The Brentford game,
yeah,
it was the same. It was noisy at the beginning, but it does fizzle out. And for me, that's been the case for a few years now. So I think the atmosphere has generally been dwindling over the past few years. So yeah, even you put Klopp in the stadium and he'll rev the crowd up, but it tends to be in short bursts, and it doesn't stay at the levels that you would expect it to be. So it tends to take incidents in games to really get the crowd up. And I think there's 2 Arsenal games that stick in my mind. One was when Arteta started at Klopp, and then the crowd really got involved. And I think we won 4-1 that day and totally took them apart. And then the Arsenal game, I think the season after, Xhaka, they were 2-0 up Arsenal and absolutely destroying us. Xhaka started on Trent, and the atmosphere in the stadium just switched, and we started to play really well, and we should have won the game in the end. We drew 2-2. So it's not enough, I think, at the moment. And I think whether one of the reasons for it is because of the corporate hospitality side of it. If you go onto the ticket website now, it's desperate trying to get tickets in, the main stand, Anfield Road, the Cop, if you're really lucky. There's a Kenny Dalglish stand. What you can pick up is a hospitality ticket for £600-800, and obviously not everybody is in a position where they can afford that. And it does seem to be across the middle strip of the main stand, middle strip of the Kenny Dalglish stand, and the middle strip of the Anfield Road stand, very heavy hospitality presence. So I'm sure that doesn't really help with the atmosphere. So yeah, the Klopp and Slot thing, I don't think is I think it's too early to say. Slot needs to be his own character, and I've been really impressed the way he's come in. He hasn't tried to be like Klopp, and he's clearly his own man. So let's let him do that. But yeah, as I say, the atmosphere for me has not been great for the past few years.
Yeah, and I've said it myself. I think the worst thing Slot could have done was come into this job trying to be Klopp, because
exactly
at that point you just feel like you're an impersonator and you're trying to be something you're not. And I'd rather him do that than sort of what Mourinho did at former jobs, where he comes in all happy smiles, oh, we're going to do this, and then the real Mourinho comes out and everyone's like, oh, bloody hell, who's this? This doesn't feel good at all. So I agree with you in that regard. I think you're absolutely right. Jamie says, glad we can discuss this subject honestly. And honestly, you've got to be double honest. Cheers, everyone. Thank you very much. Also, guys, if you've got any questions that you want to put in for the last 10 minutes or so, feel free. Now, one player who keeps getting brought up is Darwin Nunez. Now, I just want to go on record. I'm a Darwin Nunez fan. I do think he has something to contribute, but at the same time, I'm not blind. I can see the weaknesses. I'm sure we can all see the weaknesses. I know a lot of people can see the weaknesses. But going back to my fancy screen share, which, by the way, Jamie Hughes says, Lou, get on the phone to Arna and show him your new box of tricks. Absolutely will. But we're going to go back onto the screen share because there is one player, as I say, Darwin Nunez, who in particular really didn't do a lot. And I just want to preface this by saying that when you come on as a substitute, you have to make your moment count. You've got to stand out and you've got to make something happen. And I understand that's hard when you're playing a low block team who are so committed to sitting back and soaking up pressure. And Darwin's someone who wants to get in behind. But he didn't do a great deal. 0 shots on target, 0 shots off target, 0 shots. He made 6 passes, only 3 of them were accurate. So that's 50%. He made 1 key pass. He lost possession 4 times during that game. Now, Hassan, I mean, yeah, look, I wasn't expecting Darwin to come on and absolutely steal the show. I don't think anyone was really expecting him to, given what we were playing against. But to lose possession 4 times, 3 of your 6 passes go to the opposition team. Like, you expect better, surely, from someone of Darwin Nunez, who, while he's not incredible, there's talent there. We've seen it at points.
Yeah,
there we go.
yeah. I thought you were going
Sorry.
on.
No, I'm sorry, I do. I know I'll waffle. Just
Yeah. With regards to Nunes, I'm also with you. I'm a big fan. But I think the thing I touched on earlier, when he came on, he was on the left side, and left side was all evidently. I think he won the ball. He lost the ball. He won it, and he gave it, and again it went back. So I think at the left side it was all, and it's not. I think he's also not playing the natural game of him going behind the players in the defense. I think he was coming back in the midfield and going on the left side. He was not in the. There were no long balls. And I think there was no one who was feeding him. So I think it was naturally no one. I think had a really good game. So to so much focus going because people need scapegoats, and he's one of their favorites to point out. And I missed out on the previous topic question from James. I think I have 2 things I wanted to discuss. The whole culture, I think, is changing. I see when I started watching, everybody was in red. Now I think it's not cool to wear red to the red kits to the game. It's all black hats of another team's caps, and also I think people who wear it, they take pictures and post it on social media. And in Europe, in Germany, I see the fans are die hard ultras, and I think here it's getting a bit lost. And on the manager's side, these players were so focused on their game, and they knew the crowd will be handled by Klopp. He was a charismatic person who demanded everything from the fans, and they were obliged to give it to him. Uh, Rafa was like Slot, a bit calmer, and he used to focus on. But his good luck was he had Gerrard and Carragher for him, who demanded everything from the fans, and they used in these sort of games they need. Take the game on by the scruff of the necks, and after that, after Gerrard, there was always Klopp to look to him, and Klopp in the starting he figured it out and he blasted the fans who were leaving early, and when they stick back, he went to them at West Brom and appreciated the fans, and after that the fans were. So I think if Slot is not that type of a man, maybe there's some players who needs to rise up and bring the fans to the game.
No, I think that's a fair point. Actually, I never thought about that. You do need those people who will cheer the fans up. And I suppose we have got Trent, who's one person who can definitely do it. But you could see yesterday he was frustrated as well as we all were. And there's a comment saying, in games like these where the opponent defends deep and compact, do you guys think a player like Nunez should aerially dominate with his physical presence? And Anil, I mean, I said, looking back, this match feels like it was cater-made for Nunez to start in terms of when Forest were sort of at the start of the match, there was more space in behind. It would have made a bit more sense to play him over Jota maybe in that starting 11. Like, do you think that maybe Nunez should have started this one? I understand Jota's form, but yeah, etc., etc. And the second question for you is: does Endo have a future at this team? I thought Slot will bring him and Gomez time and play free defensive end in front of him. So do you think Endo has a future at this team? And do you think Nunez should have maybe started this match over Jota?
I think there's nothing wrong with Slot keeping the same lineup because we were winning. We have won 3 games in a row. So I understand why Jota's still playing. I understand why he's still got the same level of players. I do think Nunez maybe could have an impact, but this season we haven't seen confident Nunez. We haven't seen Nunez, running behind and creating chaos. We haven't really seen that when he comes off the bench so far this season. So I'm not sure if he would be on it. And with regard to Endo, I hope he has a future. I think he deserves an opportunity to show he can play under Arne's Slot way of playing, and I think he will get his chances. Only 4 games in the season. There will be games like where Slot will rotate, and that will give Endo a chance to show if he's able to play in the Slot system. And I think Szoboszlai, as I was saying before, I think the problem with Szoboszlai is he's a very good player. He's a very hard worker. He runs up and down. I appreciate what he does in the game, but I think sometimes he lacks a bit in terms of game intelligence. Like, how McAllister, he's so clever. His game intelligence is really high. Whereas I think Szoboszlai sometimes his decision making is not the best. Like you might see him charging with the ball and then he doesn't get the right pass. Or instead of shooting, he'll do something else. Might not be the right option. So yeah, I think going forward, I think maybe we could see Endo come in if Szoboszlai form does continue to drop, and then maybe we could potentially see like Endo and Gravenberch supporting each other, or similar to last season with Endo and McAllister were both like 6s, and maybe Gravenberch can then go forward. But again, I don't know if Slot. Well, Gravenberch is doing so well already in 6, so I don't know if Slot will change Gravenberch position, but it's another potential option, I suppose. So Endo definitely has the future, and I think Nunez, he may have been able to do something, but at the same time, he hasn't exactly been on his best form this season so far when he comes off the bench. Even though I understand it can be difficult coming off the bench, and I understand why Slot stuck with the same lineup.
No, yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Nunez, he will get minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he started against Milan. That does seem like a game which is sort of tailor-made for Nunez to be started in. Michael says, Gakpo should have started the false 9 to collect the ball and bring out defenders to make space for Salah and Diaz/Nunez. It works well on paper, but that's if the Forest players are foolish enough to go towards Gakpo. I think we saw that with Firmino at points towards the end where we know what he's trying to do, but the players aren't falling for it anymore, sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure that the way that Forest backline was set up and the way they organised everything, it felt very much like Nuno had said to them, look, you do not go forward under any circumstances. You sit back and you let them come to you. You don't go to them and try and win the ball. And while Gakpo may have been able to break that, it does seem like something that they would have been drilled. We are only 4 games in and we need patience and we have to trust in Slot. And that is the absolute message that we are going to end this on, because it's 4 games. You know, we've still got we've got 34 league games still to go. We've got 8 Champions League games to go and at least 1 FA Cup and 1 Carabao Cup fixture. So in total, you're looking at 44 matches still to play with so early days. I mean, Neil, for the last few minutes, like, are you concerned? Like, are you at all worried, or are we throwing the baby out the bathwater too soon?
No, not worried. As long as this is a learning experience for the players, it's a learning experience for the man or the head coach and his coaching staff. So I think what we saw in the first 3 games, less so yesterday, is they have deployed a clear identity on this team. There's a clear way that they want to play. Okay, I think our rivals down the M62 will tell you after 2 and a bit seasons they're still not sure what Ten Hag style of football is. So there's a clear plan with Slot. It suffered its first setback yesterday, and we have to learn from that very quickly, because that is going to be the blueprint for every team outside the top 6, maybe inside the top 6 that come to Anfield. They're going to play deep, they're going to play a low block, and they're going to try and catch us on the break. So very, very pleased with the first 3 games. I think we were, I don't think anyone expected it to look as good as it did for those first 3 games. We've had an international break, maybe lost that momentum a little bit, and had a really, really poor game. So 2 things. One, we have to respond to that on Tuesday night. And if we come away with a positive result in Milan, yesterday will be forgotten about. And 2, next time we face a team that's going to play with a low block and fast wingers, I don't know whether Bournemouth will do that or not, because I know that they like to play football.
Yeah.
We learn from it. We get the team selection right. We don't panic. We remain composed and make good decisions throughout the game to help us win them. So no concerns at all. Largely positive, and we just learn as we need to from these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And like Jamie says, we knew there would be downs with the ups, but we are going to shoot, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you go check out Bleeding LFC Red, which is Neil's Twitter. Hassan Habaz19, that's his Twitter. That's Hassan's Twitter, should I say. And Anil DLFC, which is Anil's Twitter. And come subscribe to my YouTube channel, Good Sport Reviews, if you like listening to me waffle, which I tend to do, not going to lie. And make sure you subscribe to the LFC Transfer Room. If you are watching over on Twitter in the future, make sure you come over to YouTube to get involved with the comments. Just a reminder, go check out everyone's Twitter. Come subscribe to my channel and subscribe to the LFC Transfer Room. There's a comment just saying, do we start bench players or go with a new 11 against Milan? If you tune into the stream tomorrow night, you will see the guys talking about that. They'll give a match preview for the Champions League match on Tuesday. Just a reminder, the stream for that match is going to be later on in the evening after the match, because kickoff's at 8 o'clock. So it'll probably be about 10:15 round about that time. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you, Neil, Hassan, and Anil, for joining me, and we'll see you all in the next stream, guys.